So the book of Acts gives us the model for reaching the ends of the earth. So I'm in Burma right now. The island of Bali is absolutely spectacular. We are in Cambodia here. This is a beautiful family that lives in a village that we've done distributions with. In the Great Commission, let's remember Jesus said, go and make disciples of all nations. And for us at World Mission, it's really important that the Word of God be a part of that. I mean, how can you really become a disciple if you don't have access to the Word of God? We are in Kor, the middle of Rendili land, and all these brothers are Rendili pastors. So are you guys happy about these units?
Yes.
All right. Cambodia is an amazing country. It's surrounded by Laos, Vietnam, and Thailand. And the 16 million people that live here, they say about 85% are Buddhists, and many of them have never heard the gospel for the first time.
And welcome. This is the Great Commission Update. I'm Rusty Humphries. He's Greg Kelley, the CEO of World Mission. And Greg, you're getting ready for a mission coming up very soon. So we're kind of getting you prepared. You are going where this trip?
I'm heading out to East Africa and North Africa, Rusty. I'll be in Kenya for a few days in Nairobi around there. And then we'll be in Addis Ababa. Love saying that.
Addis Ababa.
Addis Ababa. That's just straight north. From Kenya up to the country of Ethiopia in the mountains of Addis Ababa. It's actually really spectacular. It's a beautiful place where we do a lot of work there. And then I'll finish the trip in Cairo, Egypt. I'll be there for a week with our network that works all the way across North Africa. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
What is important about this trip? Why are you going on a trip? I mean, you go on these often. Why?
Yeah, it's for us, it's checking in, see how our national leaders are doing, what needs they have. It allows us to, it's really an accountability aspect of it too. We want to be good stewards of what God's given us. And when we're distributing the treasures, we trust them, but we also want to see what's going on so we can come back and report to people and let them know what the Lord's doing and where the needs are at. But it's also, it's a reminder to them that they're not alone, because we always say that we kind of feel like we've got the easy job. I think in the grand scheme of things, everybody's role is important. But I tell you what, it's hard for me after 22 years not to think that we kind of have the easy part of it, and they do the heavy lifting as they're going into these incredibly difficult areas. So for us just to be there with them, Rusty, and just to put our arm around their back and encourage them and pray with them is just massively important.
Does it go perfect everywhere? I mean, I would think that some places it's harder than others to do this.
Yeah, there's, especially with radical Islam and the growing things of ISIS. And we just heard about even a recent attack in Kenya, right? Of all places where Al-Shabaab has a real stronghold from Somalia. So particularly the places where radical Islam is really entrenched and aggressive, you just have to take our low profile and be very wise and smart about where you're going, who you're connecting with. We have to remind ourselves, Rusty, that it's not so much about what we do when we're there. And because there's a lot of times where just our presence of being with somebody and them being spotted with an American or a Mzungo, a lot of Africa would call you or I a Mzungo. It's our presence of.
I'm a Mzungo?
You're a Mzungo. Did you know that?
No. What's a Mzungo mean? Probably not something we can translate.
You're a white guy. You're a white guy.
All right.
So, but when they...
Hey, that's not very nice.
I know, isn't that? It's kind of offensive, isn't it? But that's in your profile now. You're a Mzungo too.
Thank you.
So, when they see us with them, it can cause difficulty. And after we're gone, then, these people who are trying to cause trouble will say, what were you doing with the Mzungo? What were you doing with them? Why were they here? And sometimes it exposes our leaders. So you have to just be really sensitive about things like that you wouldn't necessarily think of.
All right. So you wanted to talk a little bit about Kenya today. Yeah. Your headline is a little bit interesting. Mm-hmm. What is the title of this show again? And it kind of sounds a little ominous.
Yeah, it has to do with the two particular people groups, the Turkana and the Pokot, and there's a lot of tension and difficulty there. So we're planning churches right in that area. We remind people on the Great Commission update all the time, Rusty, that it's not about countries. It's about nations. Jesus didn't say, go make disciples of all countries. He said, go make disciples of all nations. And so inside of the one country that's called Kenya are 110 nations. And so when we're doing missions, we need to look at the spiritual condition of these nations so that we can evaluate, where's the need at, right? Who needs the gospel? Who doesn't need the gospel? Because the reality is in sub-Saharan Africa is largely Christian. But there's a lot of nations inside of those countries that are starving for the gospel. And so when we're doing missions, we have to say, well, if we're going to send a Bible over there, we're going to do a water project or do a vacation Bible school or whatever it is, whatever our expression is, we need to look at the people groups we're going to and saying, how are they doing with Jesus? Have they heard of Jesus? Do they know who Jesus is? Because there's a lot of these nations, even inside of Christian majority countries like Kenya, that haven't heard of Jesus. So it would just make sense that we prioritize them. And that's what this project, the Turkana Pokot project, is all about.
So who is the priority right now? Where are you sending people and dollars and treasures and things?
Yeah, when you talk about Kenya, it's all about the north and the eastern part of Kenya. You could literally draw a line that includes the north and the eastern part of Kenya, and that's where all the people are at who really haven't heard the gospel. The central part, including Nairobi, and going west to Lake Victoria is more Christian than Grand Rapids, Michigan, or Phoenix, Arizona, or Tulsa, Oklahoma. I mean, it's a Christian bastion, which we should celebrate because 100 years ago, all those very same people had never been reached with the gospel. But because of the effect and the positive impact of missions and people who gave their life to take the gospel there, they know the Lord. They're multiplying. They're second and third and fourth generation Christians. But these guys to the north, which are the Pokot and the Turkana and about 10 other people groups or nations, those are our priorities at World Mission. That's what we're going up there to do with the Turkana and the Pokot.
Okay, now I've got a couple of pictures here. Are these some of the folks that you're talking about in this trip you're going to?
Yeah, exactly. So those people, there's been natural disasters going on up there with from the standpoint of drought. And so for the last better part of 2 decades, it's been horrific drought conditions. And so we have a lot of water ministry that goes on with it. There's aid being distributed. We're showing the treasure there in those photos.
Here's a picture of you, and you're with a couple of guys.
Yeah.
And man, the stuff around these ladies' necks, those, I mean, it looks like hula hoops or something. What do you know what those mean?
Those represent, am I single? Am I available? How many children I have? There's a lot going on there. But
so is it more that says you're married, less?
Yeah.
Okay, what is
exactly. Yep. When you have a lot going on, you're a married woman, and it has to do with your seniority and your status in your village and in your tribe. The names mean a whole lot. Whether you're the first wife, second wife, fifth wife, and a lot of these places, Rusty, we met a guy in Turkana that had over 100 wives.
Wow.
Yeah, he's an incredibly influential guy in this area and had over 100 wives. So that it's really a tragedy from a standpoint of what these women are just, they don't have a choice in the matter. It's just like, well, this guy's going to give our family, because there's a dowry system in northern Kenya and all these tribes. So the families might receive 10 cows, 20 cows, 50
I don't know.
goats.
In some ways, if you don't like the guy, I mean, that's like 3 days out of the year you got to see him. If he's, spacing it out one at a time.
I'm not quite sure how that works, but it's.
I mean, I'm not trying to laugh at it, but I mean, if you got 100 wives, let's just do the math here. There's only 365 days in the year. So 3.5 times you might see the guy. If you don't like him, okay, well, at least he's paying for everything. I don't know.
We were in this one particular village, and we were essentially told that every boy, every girl, and every woman you see is either that guy's wife or one of his kids. And
man,
this guy happened to be a witch doctor, and so he was very oppressive. Was not
a nice guy
at all. Not a nice guy at all. And so while he was still around, before he died, because the guy died, there was no opportunity to share the gospel in there because he was so hostile towards. But these women that we're seeing in these photos here are ladies that are, they're brought up in this culture, and they're animist. So there's not a sense of, Christian culture in a lot of the remote villages that we're targeting. But the bigger issue with the Pokot and the Turkana, they have been rivals and really heated rivals. I mean, think of the Hatfield and McCoys on steroids, right? I mean, that's the visual of it, because they're about grazing their animals. And so there's a lot of turf battles going on for the premier grazing land for my cattle, because that's their value of worth in these cultures. And so if I'm fighting over the same watering hole, there's bound to be tension. And when it used to be 25, 30 years ago, bow and arrows and sticks and stones, today it's AK-47s. Everybody who's walking around with their herd of animals. Wow. So it's a very backwards culture.
And so do you get in the middle of that? Do you see that stuff when you get there?
It's funny when we get there, we hear the stories, and, they'll point out leaning up against a tree, there's an AK-47. It's not out in the open, but they organize raiding parties. Most of the times that I've been there, and I've been there many times to this part of Africa, either the week before, the week after, or within recent time, there was a raid either that happened to the tribe that we're with or against the tribe, or where they've organized one against another one. So, I mean, it's just a constant, perpetual pattern, unfortunately, where they'll go in. And now, just to put this in context for our viewers and the listeners of the Great Commission update, we're talking about the entirety of their source of value. Their wealth is entirely tied into how many animals they have. So this is a big deal. This would be like someone coming in and taking your home, taking all of your assets, raiding your bank account, taking your 401k. That's the equivalent of this. And so when they go in, and one time I was there not terribly long ago, 1,000 camels were taken from one people group to the next. And while I was in the village, a retaliatory raiding party was organizing to go and get those 1,000 camel back, because they could kind of track them down, and they knew where they came, where the guys
probably
had come.
hard to hide 1,000 camels.
It's hard to hide. They didn't have a drone or an helicopter that could jump and figure it out. But the point is that it's constant conflict that goes on. And so what we want to do, Rusty, is we're actually targeting this area, and the most volatile of the areas, as you can imagine, would be right where the territories are sort of, somewhat defined. Like this is where Pokot ends and Turkana begins. And it's in those areas where the raiding is originating from, and where a lot of the violence is taking place. And so we're going to go in with our national partners, and we're going to equip evangelists with motorcycles so they can go around. It's a vast, vast, vast area that we're talking about. They'll show the Jesus film, which is really cool. They have the Jesus film. We've got it in a backpack. Nice. And so they'll go and they'll kind of flip it up and tie it up to some trees. And next thing you know, they're watching a film in the middle of the desert. That is a beautiful experience. And that introduces them to Jesus. And then we follow up with treasures. But we're going to plant churches right in the middle of this sort of the bullet point of the tension. I'm very excited about that. That's going to be
amazing.
happening.
Let me ask you, they don't have cars or airplanes. How far are these people groups away from each other? Is it a mile, 10 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles? What do you think?
Yeah, with the area where we're planting these churches, what we've been told is there's not any gospel presence within about a 40-mile area from north to south. So this whole bandwidth is unreached entirely. And so that's the area we're talking about. As far as the distance, there may be some villages as close as, we'll say, 5 to 10 miles maybe at the border area of them. And keep in mind, this is not like a defined border like we would say if I'm driving from Michigan to Indiana or Ohio. It's like, hey, now you're entering Indiana, or you're entering Kentucky now. There's no lines, no specific borders. It's like this tree over to that mountain and this watering hole.
That rock. Yeah.
So it's pretty loosely defined. But again, the animals are kind of moving back and forth in these areas. And that's what caused all the tension. So it's going to be an exciting project. it's going to really mobilize a whole lot of national leaders, because I won't be doing the work, but we've got evangelists that are both Turkana, that represents the northern of the two people groups, and Poka, which is the southern, and they'll be working together. And they will be, so it's going to be Poka, it's going to be Turkana Christians working together to do this initiative. It's going to be super exciting, Rusty. When it happens, I believe it's going to be a testimony to that whole region for all of Kenya. But I really feel like this is the kind of thing that only God can do and really bring about some restoration and some peace in the area. And it could have ripple effects into all of Africa. I mean, it's that significant.
That is amazing. Is it hard for those Polka and Turkana guys who are Christians to work together? I mean, you don't see a lot of Hatfields and McCoys hanging out.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that it's God's grace and strength that allows them to forgive, but it's hard to find a Polka or a Turkana in that area who hasn't been intimately affected by the raids and the attacks. So it might be, hey, they killed my brother, they killed my dad, they killed my grandpa. And so you're very familiar with pain that has been sort of associated with this neighboring rival people group. And, you got to get over that. It's not fun when someone's done something, terrible to you. So it starts with forgiveness and saying, yeah, I got to forgive you. And now the crazy thing is that forgiveness turning full circle into this idea of where Christians are saying, and I want to reach you with the gospel.
Right. And so it sounds like it's one of the first lessons of Christianity, the forgiveness.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Isn't it interesting how the things that are the most painful, right? Those can be, stumbling blocks for an awful long time. Some people never, get stuff rooted out. That's been an offense that's happened. You don't have to live over there to deal with that. I mean, plenty of people, you and I, deal with that. People we know, but God wants us to forgive in those situations so we can move on and be used by Him. Otherwise, it's hard to be used by the Lord if we are hanging on to an offense and we refuse to forgive like He's forgiven us.
Well, you're doing something that is important religiously, spiritually, politically. I mean, this is a big, big deal, and this is something that we really do need people to reach out and help you out with, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, the resources that'll be involved in this, we're probably looking at maybe, I'd like to get 3 or 4 motorcycles. I'd like to get the same number of Jesus films. Each evangelist would have a Jesus film backpack. Those cost us about $1,500, and then they can go out. And then, we want to put probably 300 or 400 treasures into this initiative. A couple of water projects, drilling holes. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about, in the neighborhood of $50,000 that we're going to need to invest in it. But like I said, Rusty, the impact of what a privilege just to be a part of getting the gospel where it's not been, right? But then the impacts of this on a much grander level in the kingdom, I think it's one of those projects that has got us pretty excited around here for 2020.
I bet. And of course, you and I are also going on a mission. We're going where in March?
We are going, my friend, to Bangladesh and Southeast Asia, and we're going to visit a tribe, a people group that's inside of Bangladesh called the Rohingya, which is a 100% Muslim people group. They're all refugee status because they've come from Burma and the conflicts that was going on there. And so we're going to be visiting some of these refugee camps and meeting some of the national leaders that are ministering to the Rohingya, medical, and also lots of treasures going in there. And then from there, we are going to head on up to Nepal, the Himalaya Mountains, the home of Mount Everest.
And we're like going to like Everest Base Camp, you said.
It's comparable to that.
Okay.
It's on the adjacent side of the Himalaya Mountains in an area. It's a town called Pokhara, which is also the Himalayas run throughout that whole country. And so we'll be visiting these areas, and all of our India partners are coming together. We're going to spend some time with them and map out the next decade of ministry in that region of the world.
So in March, is it going to be cold?
It is going to be cold in the higher elevations.
Okay, because I originally thought, doing this, I was going to have like this list of about, this size of things I need to get. Well, I found out it's a list of about this size, and it keeps going and going. and going. Yeah. I mean, this is quite a little adventure.
It makes it fun and exciting, unpredictable. You're this is the adventure of a lifetime, Rusty.
It is. And that's just at the sporting goods store.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. What memories we're going to make. And we are going to, let's remind our listeners and those who watch the Great Commission update, we are going to be doing some recording and some programming from there, which will be really exciting to share with our friends. So they can kind of go there with us. You and I are going, but we're going to take everybody with us.
Now, will there be a lot of Starbucks where I can go and plug in and recharge my battery, places like that, a lot of good internet access?
Yeah, I know you're kind of messing with me a little bit, but you will be surprised. You will be surprised at the number of modern luxuries that you're exposed to. Now, for the whole trip, I can't make it too plush on you, but we'll have access to a little Starbucks action as we're going around. But we're going to be out in the bush as well. Especially when we're up in the mountains.
Awesome. All right. So a lot of things happening, and they don't happen without you. We appreciate you watching, and we thank you for it. And we ask you to subscribe and tell your friends about the Great Commission update. And whether you're watching on YouTube or The Range or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever that you subscribe. But also that you dig a little deep. And I know it's a tough time of the year, but I promise your tough times are nothing like the tough times that these folks are going through. They've never heard the name Jesus before. I mean, I'm going to go around, come on, never. I mean, that goes through my head. Never, come on. But they haven't. And so if you want to help change lives, change souls, change communities, change people groups, change a continent, change the world, you can do it for just a couple of dollars by helping us by going to worldmission.cc. Greg, tell them about it.
Yeah, Rusty, I mean, what you're saying is that it's crazy for us to try and process that. Never heard of Jesus? Well, there's a lot of reasons to that. Namely, it's hostile areas. It's not places where it's welcome. And it takes men and women who are very brave and courageous to go into those places. And I'm not even talking about me. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the national partners that are just eager. They can't wait to get in there. But as you and I come alongside of them and put treasures in their hands, our solar-powered audio Bible and a Jesus film, I'm telling you, friends, who you are partnering and aligning with are some of the most inspirational people on planet Earth. And what a privilege for us to partner with them. So when you're partnering with us and going and subscribing to the podcast and sharing it with your friends, that's what you're setting in motion. And you're impacting the nations of the earth, places that you and in some cases I never even have the opportunity to go to, but they need to hear the gospel. And that's what's happening when you partner with us.
Well, please partner with us. Please help us. And again, one of the things that we talked about, and I still want to do this, Greg, and that is thank people who've donated on the trip. Hey, we're on the top of Mount Everest, and thank you very much, Jimmy. Whatever it is, it's going to be great, and we sure would look forward to you helping us with that. So that's about it. We're about out of time.
Yeah, man, great program, buddy.
It is a good program.
Nations of Kenya. Oh, man.
All right, the music's not working though. Do 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 do.
Good at that.
Do 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 do. I'm pushing the button. It should be going. Do 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 do. So just pretend that the music's going. Do 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 do. Worldmission.cc. Do 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 do. Not.com.cc. Do 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 boo do 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 do. I'm Rusty Humphries. He's Greg Kelley, and we'll catch you next time. Do 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 on the Great Commission update. Do 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 do. You like the music, Greg? Was that good? Do do.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Do but do but do 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 do. Do fading out. Do 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 do. Bye. Catch you next time. Do 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 do. Bye 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 do do do.